Hello everybody, my name is Michael, you know me as Coding Jungle, and today I'm going to talk about the DevCenter Plus that comes inside the DevToolbox. This is a very feature-rich feature of the toolbox, so I think it deserves its own video to describe what it does. As some of you know, this feature actually started off as a group of template plugins or live templates for PHP Storm. And as my understanding of IPS has grown over the years, I've decided that since I don't know Java very well, and I would love to add this section into PHP Storm itself, I probably should learn Java so I can add these kind of features. But since I'm pretty decent at JavaScript or PHP, I was like, I'll do it over here. Basically, DevCenter improves upon the DevCenter that IPS gives you. And in several areas, it tries to improve these things. Like it used to try to do extensions, and it kept breaking, so I removed that one. There were some other things on here, like languages, that I removed because it was just a mess. I mean, it worked, but it was just sometimes it would take forever to load because of the amount of language strings you might have. So I removed that. And I have table imports that I'll probably remove at some time. Originally, when I developed this, I was doing work on several apps that had a lot of preset like categories and stuff. So I wanted it a way to import them quickly and easily, but it wasn't an ideal solution. So I haven't really used it that much. But that's basically what it was meant to do. Because if you had a bunch of default imports for your database, you'd have to add them in one at a time as you created them in the schema manager. This way, you can add them through your interface or whatever, and then go and just import that data directly into your app. And that's what that was for. But I've moved away from that, so I probably will remove it at some time in the app itself. Nobody's ever mentioned it, so I don't know if it works or not, or still works, or if people are using it. Like I said, nobody's ever mentioned it to me. But the biggest 2 points of the DevCenter Plus are the create sources and create asset. And what create sources does, it allows, there's 2 places that it can create sources to. It can create it to the API folder and the sources folder here. And you have your choices, like you can do a standard class, and all the standard class is going to be is just a class. Then you got your interface and your traits you can add in. Now, these other ones are all IPS or Toolbox specific. Like Singleton will create a Singleton class based on the IPS Singleton pattern. Active Record, same thing. It will create a boilerplate Active Record class. And if you come into the ones like the Active Record and the node and the item and the comment, you've got options to create other features. Like you can create the database directly, you can create the modules. Like on a node class, it creates the ACP module, and on an item class, it creates the front end module if you want it to. You don't have to create it. Like you can choose not to create it, or you can just turn it off altogether. You got things you can fill out like the namespace, the class name, and this form will adapt based on what type you choose. Like if you choose an items class, it's a lot more in depth than the active record because there's more options for the items class. Like I said, you have the database and the module. This is the parent class. This is if you have a comments class, a reviews class, and then what features of the IPS framework do you want it to inherit from? So it looks at all the interfaces like the edit history, embeddable, that kind of thing. And you can check them off or add them, depending on which ones you want. You can also add additional interfaces. And on the IPS traits, if you want to add additional traits to it, you can. or you can add the default IPS traits to it, or you can remove them or add traits that you've created yourself. And this will create, if there's anything corresponding, like if a particular interface needs a specific, say, method implemented, or the trait needs a property or a method implemented, it will create those in the boilerplate class. It also creates like all the base properties that you're going to need in the types of classes from IPS too. So that's important. That's a time saver. So you don't have to go copy an IPS class and then figure it out. You can just create a clean one from back here. And you got several choices. You got the singleton, active record, API, node, item comment, item review. And then you got profile or debug and profile or memory. I'm going to do separate videos on both of these, so keep a lookout for that. But these are specific classes to Toolbox that you can use inside your app for, tracking how much memory you're using and the debug. Like if you got a debug that you're wanting to use. All right, that's it on the create sources. Like I said, they adapt to what you're creating. Like nodes are different than active records and that sort of thing. Now, when you create an asset, basically what this is for, it's like a template. Just creates the base template basically. And let's go to an actual app that's got templates and whatnot in it, so I can show you there. Like I'm in Stratagem, and I would click on template. It'll ask me what group to add it to. So if the group exists, it will allow me to select it here. But if it doesn't, I can create it wherever I want. Like if it's an admin template or a front template or a global template, I can create the folder name, the file name, and the parameters. And what that does, when it creates the file, it's basically just going to be this here. It's not going to include any of the actual template bit. It's just going to include this IPS tag here, this IPS template parameter, and whatever parameters you put here. You don't have to put the $sign in front of them. You just put the name of them. And it will create them in that folder you told it to. So if you told it to go to front bar, it would create it here. It would, whatever you named it. The template one isn't very robust or anything like that because it's just a basic template. It's not even, it doesn't even create any HTML for you. It just creates the header. I don't even know what IPS calls that. The IPS header, I guess you can call it. It creates that. That's all it does. It's very basic, but it's the JS module, the JS stuff that actually is important because IPS has its own JavaScript framework, so to speak, and they have several different types. They've got widgets, modules, controllers, templates, and mixins. Now, if you create a mixin on this, you can actually choose what to mix it in with. It actually goes through all the IPS files and the installed apps and looks at their JavaScript to see which ones you can mix into. Or, no, it actually shows all of them. I probably should fix that. But it allows it, quick, easy way to create a mixin. And again, it does the folder. You can choose to add the group or not. If you don't, it will place it just in a. I don't know why it does. It should give you a selector here. So that one I need to work on. But yeah, it allows you to create the mix, and it gives you the base boilerplate you need to get started off with. And same with controller. You can create the file name, and you can choose an existing group or create the own group. Widget and everything. Like they have different. Some of them have different parameters based on like a widget name, and the widget name is the part that you do the IP data IPS blah 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 on. So if you were doing a a widget named Tom, like a foobar here, and the widget name could be foobar or foobar widget, whatever you want to call it, and it would place that in the boilerplate. And what I mean is, like, if you go look at some of the JavaScript in IPS, like the debug here is a widget, I believe. Yeah, it's a widget. And what it would do is it would give you this boilerplate here, this stuff here. It won't give you the object here, but it will give you everything else that's in here that gets you started. So you don't have to go and copy this and remove all the stuff you don't need. You can create it back here, and it will be instantly added, and you can then go in and adapt it how you need it, or add your JavaScript as you see fit. And it does it for all the types, like the widgets, the modules, the controllers, the templates. It creates them where you need them at. All right, the final feature. Make sure my list here. We've already in the other video for extensions. We talked about the hooks, the special hooks extension. So if you want to learn more about that one, basically what that does is when you create a hook, it will create the special hook version of it. It will add the namespace up here at the top, and then it would create a hook class in DT proxy if you have DT proxy enabled and whatnot. It will check. It would actually check to see if this folder exists first, and if it doesn't, it doesn't create it. It won't create it without proxy being run first. All right, so there is one last thing I want to go over, and it's what is it? Which one does that? Oh, the class lookup. So let's say I'm creating a hook. I can actually just tell it to look up the class, and by default IPS is just a text field, and you got to add that yourself. But with this, it will, if the proxy class generator has been run, it creates a special array that this section here can use, and it will show you the available classes for it, so you can be more accurate, I guess you can say. Or you can look up the different classes, and then create your file name based around that and hit save. And like I said, if the proxy class has been ran and special hooks are installed, it will create a special hook. If not, it creates a standard hook. But you know, if proxy class has been run, this will show up, but if it hasn't, it won't. And special hooks, again, will be created if the extension's installed. So, alright. That's pretty much it on the DevCenter Plus. There isn't a whole lot of other features for it. There are some back-end stuff that gets done a little bit, but nothing really to concern yourself with other than they're hooks to make some of this stuff happen. So be rest assured it's not doing anything funky into your build. But it adds features and stuff that you can use with everything else. So I find, like I said, I find this immensely, I don't know, rewarding, I guess you could say, to build, to use, because I don't have to go and copy a node class from some other app and then remove everything that I don't want in it. It gives me, like I said, it gives you a boilerplate. Like we're going to create one real fast so I can show you what that does. Like I got an application here called test. Now let's go create a node item, and we're going to call it donation. Prefix is donation. We're going to let it create the scaffolding. There is no parent node to it. It's not a subnode. So we don't need that. It's not going to have an items class just yet, so we're not going to create that. IPS node permissions. Let's go ahead and let it create it with everything default. Alright, so it doesn't give you any indication that it's completed. I probably should put a message that says, oh yeah, this was built. And if we go look at the test folder, I did a test already, but we see donations, and we can come in here, and as you can see, it's a boilerplate um, model class that gives us everything that we need to start off building our model. Basically, it adds a basic permission array, which you can change. You don't have to keep it this. It adds it to the laying file too. Excuse me. It creates the backend module for it. And if we were to refresh this page, it'd show up here. It doesn't create an icon for it. It just creates an entry for it. But if we come over here and it does that sometimes. As you can see, it created the database for it. That is off. That shouldn't be doing that. I don't know why it's doing that. I see why. I added the clubs, and it looks like they changed something in the club, so I'm gonna have to go in there and tell it to. I'm gonna have to figure that one out. That's a bug. But anyway, it creates the table for it, and it creates the file, and it creates the module, creates the language string. That's what the scaffolding does. And if nothing went wrong in it, it should have added a proxy class for it too, and it doesn't look like it did. Oh, it created one for the module, but it didn't create one for the source. Oh, that's weird. One of those gremlins, man. You do a video and everything breaks. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It creates it. It defines some basic keys for it. You can go in and change it any way you want, but this is just basically everything you've chosen based on the creating the source. It will adapt the database schema for that. So if you didn't have ratings or order, that kind of stuff, if you told it not to do some of the like the permissions or the ratings, it wouldn't add permissions or ratings. It would have this here. But the other stuff like the SEO title, the order, and the enabled, we probably don't need that anymore, or that. But it, like I said, is boilerplate. I might add more options in here so you can disable some of these features if you're not going to use them, which would probably be a good idea. Because I don't use all of them. I don't always use order, and I don't always use enabled, and I don't always use parent. I might not want them to be, having the ability to create children for it, that sort of thing. So I'll probably add in a switch to turn those features off on it. You learn as you grow. But that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you that it does do that. It shouldn't be throwing that error. I think the reason it is because what does the error say? It says select test donation where donation parent is null, donation club ID is no order by unknown column donation club ID. So it's not adding the donation club ID, and that's probably an older bug that I haven't caught because I don't use clubs very often. I usually add them. I've added them to apps. I don't think I've ever added one directly creating an app. I think it was after I've created the app. So it's probably not, it looks like it's not creating that database entry or that field. Yeah, it's not adding it. So I'll figure that one out and get it fixed. I'll also add in those things that I said I would, like might not be using permission. We might not be wanting to have this kind of stuff like node sortable, the enable, the order, the parent. You might not be needing that stuff, so I might set it up where you don't include it. Even the bitwise, not every app uses bit options, so um, there are some room for improvements here. So let me know what you think of the DevCenter Plus, and let me know if there's anything you want to improve on it, and I'll be more than happy to consider it. All right, you guys have a good day now.